2 days after NATO ended its 7-month military campaign in Libya, the United Nations Secretary-General has arrived in Tripoli for talks with the National Transitional Council.
Ban Ki-moon touches down in Libya for talks with the country's interim government. The United Nations Secretary-General was accompanied by UN General Assembly President Nasser Abdulaziz al-Nasser. The pair were received by the chairman of the National Transitional Council, Mustafa Abdel Jalil. Ban's visit to the capital Tripoli comes 2 days after NATO ended its 7-month military campaign in the country. NATO has since said it does not expect to play a major role in Libya following the civil war that resulted in the toppling and then death of former leader Muammar Gaddafi. The NTC, meanwhile, is continuing to lead the transition after it elected a new prime minister to guide the country towards a new constitution and democratic elections.
The Chinese regime is allegedly using a Buddhist temple in Sichuan province as a makeshift detention center for brainwashing Falun Gong practitioners. The regime has been persecuting the spiritual group since 1999. Sanctions Temple is about 30 miles from Chengdu in Pengzhou City.
Over the past 12 years, thousands of makeshift centers have been set up across China for the purpose of forcing Falun Gong practitioners to renounce their faith.
According to the Falun Dafa Information Center, which monitors the human rights situation in China, 14 Falun Gong practitioners have been imprisoned at the temple since June 2010. They've suffered beatings, physical abuse, and mental torture.
There's something very sinister about the Communist Party using a Buddhist place of worship as a venue for forcibly brainwashing people who have dedicated themselves to following a Buddhist school practice.
The Falun Dafa Information Center reported a specific instance of a farmer being held there for 4 months. Qing Guangrong endured numerous beatings before she was released in July 2011. So far, the center has documented over 63,000 cases of Falun Gong practitioners who have been tortured. The center has also documented over 3,300 deaths due to persecution, but estimates that the actual death toll may be in the tens of thousands. They call the Chinese regime's persecution of Falun Gong, quote, possibly the largest religious persecution in the world today. Yesterday, as world leaders arrived in France for the G20 summit, protesters gathered to demand freedom for Tibet. That comes as Chinese authorities have clamped down on Tibetan areas of Sichuan province after protests by Tibetan monks there.
Free Tibet protesters gathered at the main train station in Cannes, France on Wednesday.
Free Tibet! Free Tibet!
They were protesting Chinese leader Hu Jintao's arrival at the G20 summit. The summit started Wednesday night.
Today we are asking world leaders and the public to put pressure on the Chinese government here at the G20 to end the military oppression inside Tibet. Tibetans are living under unbearable conditions. 10 Tibetans in recent months have set themselves on fire. Young Tibetans have set themselves on fire. And they are demanding for global intervention and the world to support their cries for help.
The group Free Tibet says that 10 Tibetans have self-immolated so far this year in an extreme protest against the Chinese regime's treatment of Tibetans. On Tuesday, UN human rights investigators called on China to stop repression of Tibetan Buddhist monks. They voiced concern that many had been arrested or had disappeared during a recent crackdown on religious freedom. The protesters in Cannes were eventually dispersed by French police as a massive security sweep of the area began.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Global Government News. Today is Friday, November 4th, 2011, and I'm Darko. This is part 3, the final part for today. My website is ggnonline.com. That's www.ggnonline.com. And then ddarko2012 is my YouTube channel. All of the links for all of these articles, I think I covered at least 130 today, plus are going to be in YouTube's video description. So check out those links, headlines, and also all the links for Twitter and all the other fun stuff, Facebook. Okay. Either way, okay, so you just saw that video. I just thought it was kind of funny. I mean, it's sad that it's funny, but it's just, you know, you see frogmen like sweeping the streets because these people are just trying to be fucking free. They want to be left alone. You know what I mean? And of course, they're going to call in for the UN, the global government, to help them. They're not going to help you. Ultimately, they're going to get rid of religion or spirituality. And if they do bring it in, it's going to be a guided religion. It's going to be the New World Order religion. and I don't want to have any part of it. So you're not going to get help from the global government and the UN. But it's just insane what they're doing. I remember I was in college. There was not a professor, but he was working on his master's, and I was doing a class, a separation class when you graduate. I gotta get a job, even though I never really found one. But he was part of that Free Tibetan movement, and he was a really nice person. I think he was actually from that area. So there's a lot of protesters out there supporting the Tibetans and these monks. That's the 10th one that self-immolated, burned themselves. So, and of course the ones that didn't actually die got dragged off and disappeared. They've never seen them anymore. So they were arrested for trying to kill themselves, in other words. LSE head quits over Gaddafi scandal. So here we go. Mr. Howard Davies resigns after fresh allegations over links to Libyan regime. See, now, like I said before, you can call it the administration, right? Because that's what it was, the Libyan administration, as a PR firm admits error over lobbying. So now they're all going to backstep as if, we didn't even talk to Gaddafi. We didn't make any deals or contracts. Remember that woman that was a model or something like that in Germany? That, like I said, she got publicly lashed because she had links with Gaddafi, and now you're seeing the same crap. So, and can you imagine if that happened? Like, this person over in France had ties to the Obama regime, and then he gets fired. I mean, that would be great. I mean, if the world was actually the way it could be, right? Not saying that it should be. It is what it is. But what it could be is that all of a sudden you got these Camerons, these Blairs, these Obama Bushes. Anyone that has ties with them is going down, right? You don't want to be part of that sinking ship, right? But no, everybody wants to be part of this little dark global cabal of just, I don't even know what you call them. They're parasites. They take your will and they trick you, and then they just go off and do their own little thing. So, so this is what democracy brings you, and this is what supporting a humanitarian mission will get you, is this. It's a Holocaust. Let's just call it for what it is. It was a Holocaust in Libya. But like I said before, the only Holocaust that we'll ever hear about is the killing of the Jews, which there are people that actually say that didn't even take place. So I'm not saying that I believe that, but I'm just saying not everything's black and white. So, but the only Holocaust that ever existed, because I went through school, public and private, and in private school they did bring a person that was a survivor of the concentration camp, and she made us feel all guilty, all of us white kids in the Catholic school, and then moving on, we also had, quote, education or re-education all throughout school to help make us feel even more guilty. And then what else? We had all the movies. We had all those movies, right? And so if you do try to go against, debate this argument like Ahmadinejad or any one of those people, you're going to be looked at as a kook. So, but either way, this was a Holocaust, but it won't be called that. That is my point. And there's been so many Holocausts that's gone on, and they're not called Holocaust. But if you're a certain type of group, then it's a Holocaust. Then it's racism. It's anti-Semitism. So you got to be equal. You have to have tolerance. And if you didn't know that, you better learn. So it's here, Western mercenaries and corporations pouring into Libya. So we're not really surprised by that. That's what it was all for. See no Al-Qaeda or Al-Qaeda, New York Times in Libya. So spotting of Al-Qaeda's black flag flying atop Benghazi courthouse a few days ago sparked much excitement on the internet regarding the role being played by the Islamic terror organization in post-Gaddafi Libya. So yeah, they're flying the Al-Qaeda flag. The West knew that they were supporting Al-Qaeda. They were bringing in arms, and now they're saying, we got to get these arms out of here. Okay, U.S. tells Assad to step down in Syria, but not just to step down. Remember, before it was step down. Now it's step down now. So now that they're done with Libya, right? Now they're done with Libya. Now, as you notice, that Iran just came out of nowhere, right? As soon as they were done with Libya, boom. This is part of a project of a new American century. This has been planned years ago. Right? It's been talked about in groups and the movers and the shakers and these global roundtables. And then you had the general, I can't think of his name right now, sorry, but Wesley Clark maybe. And he went in order the countries that these guys were getting ready to take out. And he goes, I couldn't believe it. They said in Libya was on there, and Iran and Syria, and they're just going along with this. So when they present these ideas, I don't know if you're new to this information, but if you are, this is all coordinated. This is a fact. This is all being done coordinated, in a coordinated effort. So it's whatever reasons that they give you, whether it's nuclear weapons or whatever else, it's bullshit. So. Okay, so moving on here, we have Clinton. Iran's alleged assassination plot sends a message that we got over your border. So she's just basing that off some frivolous accusations against Iranians in America and stuff like that, dealing with Mexican drug cartels. It was just a complete BS lie, propaganda to get war started again. And people pretty much picked up on it right away, and just everyone kind of laughed at him, including the Iranians. Syria, keeping forces in place, asked civilians to disarm. So the civilians are armed, and they're being brought in by outside countries, and that's right. The civilians are armed, and they are shooting Syrian troops. UN fears Pakistani rogue scientist. Ooh, a rogue scientist passed on nuclear secrets to Syria. So you see. Then we have Iran, the damning nuclear evidence. So like I said before, they've never actually been caught producing nuclear weapons. But now this is the first time ever that I've seen and not covering, but just paying attention to all of the stuff on Iran, the news, and nuclear weapons and stuff like that, and the IAEA. And they've never found it, but now they're actually saying that they have found something. So that's kind of scary to me. Maybe this is the final go. Don't know. A nice holiday present for Iran as U.S. lawmakers again tougher sanctions legislation. That's of course to starve the Iranian people before they go in there and attack. Iran will release 100 documents implicating U.S. on terrorist acts. Says leader has hundreds of documents that are indisputable. Proves the United States involvement in terrorist actions and assassination plots in Iran and the region, and will release them to the public. And remember, Ahmadinejad, he's just the president, the supreme leader in Iran. He's the one that actually calls the shots. So it says here, Israeli Prime Minister orders investigation into Iran leak. Here that Netanyahu believes that the heads of the Mossad and Shin Bet may have leaked plans for the attack. Moving on, Israel versus Iran. U.S. can't get involved yet. Then U.S., UK, France, ratchet up pressure on Iran. This is just typical propaganda I'm showing you. Salih warns U.S. against entering collision course with Iran. That's the term that they use. Army chief secretly visits Tel Aviv. That's big news. British military general chief Sir David Richards secretly visited Tel Aviv earlier this week. The Israel Daily Jerusalem Post quoted regime's military sources as saying, moving on, a military war of nerves against Iran. The U.S. leads, Israel and UK go along. So it's talking about an orchestrated Western performance to convince Tehran that the U.S., Britain, and Israel are on the verge of a military operation against the nuclear installations. And I just wanted to point this out. I had a dream probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and I could have sworn it had to do with either Iraq or Iran, but it was the most vivid dream I've ever had, where two sides were in these little like ledges, like these dirt ledges, and they were just firing at each other. And I was weird because I had this view where I could see both sides, and the blood was just flying. And it was just kind of very symbolic, two sides like that. And then all of a sudden I went down this little tunnel, down these stairs into this tunnel, like a rail tunnel, and I saw nothing but, as far as the eye can see, these big plastic rail carts, but they weren't that big, about 8 by 10, all clear, with nothing but bodies of Arab people, just all the way down this tunnel. And that scared the living shit out of me. I woke up with like sweating and stuff like that. And it's not really to scare you, it's just, I don't know. Sometimes my dreams do have some kind of meaning to them. And, if this happens, hopefully this doesn't happen, because there's going to be a lot of death. And the Iranians are going to fight to the death. I can guarantee that. But we'll see. Israel intercepts Gaza-bound aid flotilla. Again, foreigners stir trouble in Iraq, says al-Maliki. Then U.S. drone raid kills 120 in 2 days in Somalia. That's 120 people. Somalia residents living in fear of Kenya attacks. Then Somalia rebels say they will subject Kenya to an endless war. That's right. Kenya army to enforce no-fly zone, just like Libya. So more killing of civilians. Somali militants strike Kenya choppers. U.S. Senator lauds state operation in Somalia, and U.S. terror drone kills 41 more in Somalia, so good job. Another elderly veteran faces eviction if he hangs a U.S. flag, and in Denver, they collect fines on drivers who stopped at the red lights. Lastly, New York City cop imprisons college student without ID for 2 days. Now, she was walking out at 3 a.m., but she was being escorted by another male. But see, the cop doesn't care about the safety of you. They just want your ID, right? The state's going to protect